Okay, welcome back to the 6th video in the Nickfin Gaming's Unity shooter game course. So we just finished our player controller, so let's jump over to our bad guy controller. If you don't see it up here, you may have the bar over here, which I don't seem to have. But another thing you can do is, of course, go to your Unity and just double click on the script and it would open it. So when we last touched the script, we pretty much just added a public float speed to help us out. So let's add a header here, and the header will say controls the speed that the bad guy moves toward the player at. Okay, and let's move it down a bit, because now we actually want to get the player. So get the player, and we will actually get this from the start method. So let's say private transform, and we will call this one player. Then we want the player controller, so get the player controller. This will also be a private one, but this is now player controller, and we'll name this, of course, player controller. How interesting. We now need a maximum distance. So we'll say float max dist, and this will be used to help us move. So private float max dist, the distance that we move every update, and this is used in tandem with speed, as you will see. So it looks like we have all of our variables. Let's just region that off. Region variables, if I can type. Oh, I can't even type. Variables. And let's end the region there and save us some space. Now in the start, as you saw, we want the player and the player controller. So let's say the player equals game object dot find game object with tag. Make sure it's game object, not game objects with an S. We want game object without an S. And our tag that we'll pass is player, which we will set later. And let's turn that to a transform. Then we want the player controller. The player controller is going to be a player.getComponent, which will be the player controller. And there you go. We have to set these here because these will be part of a prefab, which you will understand later. Okay, so now let's move the player. So, sorry, not move the player, move the bad guy. Let's make this a region. So hashtag region, move the bad guy, copy, paste, end region, open up, and we say transform.position, which is the transform of the object that the script is connected to, will equal a new vector 3. Oh, not new vector 3. I am terribly sorry. Just vector 3 dot move towards, and in our move towards we want the current one, so this is the transform dot position. Our target, so this is the player dot position, and then how fast does it move, which will be our max distance times our speed. Oh my, did I do something funny there? Okay. And finally, we want to say if we are touching the player, let's say move this. Now, if we are touching the player, so if transform dot position is equal to the player dot position, then we want to say the transform dot parent dot game object dot set active is false. So it pretty much turns this off when touching the player. But this really isn't called. You know what? I am terribly sorry. I think I'm just going to leave that out and see if it works. Actually, let me comment it out. So my code may work without this now that I look at it, so I'm going to press Control KC to comment multiple lines. You do Control KU to uncomment multiple lines, so Control KU, Control KC, which is very weird. I wish I could just do a Control slash like everything else. But okay, we still have time, so let's make an on collision enter. So on collision enter, collision collision, I like that. We will say if collision dot game object dot tag dot equals shot. So if we touched a shot, turn off bad guy. And just as that says, we want to actually go into our player controller and we will call that bad guy defeated method. Then we'll say the transform dot parent dot game object dot set active is now false. So, oh sorry, tells the player that we are defeated. And let me scroll down. This one will turn this off. And finally, we want to turn off the collider as well. So we'll turn off the shot now that it is spent. If you want to make one shot cut through multiple people, just don't do this part. But I like one shot for one person. So I'll say collision dot transform dot parent dot game object dot set active to false. So pretty much this takes the collision transforms parent game object and sets it to false, which you will understand later after we make the prefab. Now if we touch the player, which is why we don't need this anymore, we say if the collision dot game object dot tag dot equals the string player, then we are touching the player. And we say player controller dot game over, and we lose. Of course, this game can't be won anyways. And that's pretty much our bad guy controller. We still need to make the shot controller and all of our prefabs. So I think we'll jump into our shot controller in the next video. But thank you very much for watching this one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye.